For more on Trump's threats, I want to bring in Stephanie Carvin. She's an associate professor at Carleton University and a former national security analyst. Stephanie, thank you again for taking the time to talk to us.
Hey, thanks for having me back on. It's another dramatic day.
It sure is. So, characterize it for us in your mind. What's your reaction to Justin Trudeau saying that Trump's takeover threat is real, is genuine?
I mean, the president is erratic, right? But I mean, this isn't the first time he has said such a thing. He has openly said multiple times that he would like to take over the country. He has said he would not use military force to do it, but use crushing economic pressure. And here we are. So I think it's something that, again, we can have this there's always this debate over Trump. Do you take him literally or do you take him seriously or not? And, I mean, it's really hard, but I think Donald Trump is very clear. I was listening to his comments just before the noon hour when he was sitting with President Abe, and he said, yeah, well, the tariffs are going to help us with our deficit. It's very clear some kind of tariff is coming. I don't know if it's going to be the full 25%. I don't know if they're going back and recalibrating. I don't know if they're just trying to give American industry 30 days to prepare. But I mean, the tariff threat is real. And whether or not he actually wants to take over the country, the fact is that there's going to be a large amount of economic damage that he will be willing to bring forward because this is what he believes is going to make America great again.
So, Stephanie, let me ask you just to put it into the context, because you're right. We have heard him say it over and over again. It's not a joke. He says it very seriously at news conferences that that's what he wants. And now we have the Prime Minister saying what we know, as Karina was reporting, saying to premiers, saying to opposition leaders in a closed-door meeting that this appears to be a real ambition of the U.S. president. And now he's speaking to dozens and dozens of business union community leaders in the country today and kind of quasi-caught, on mic. I mean, it's a quasi-public kind of gathering of people. So it's not, it's okay to report.
Yeah, it's not like it was held secret conversations.
No,
yeah,
it's not
exactly.
a secret conversation. It's not in a cabinet meeting or anything like that. And then we have the Prime Minister saying that to these business leaders who presumably are going to go out and say, look, the Prime Minister says this threat from Donald Trump is real. This is his ambition in the context of, say, our critical minerals. So what does it mean to have the Prime Minister of this country say the American president's ambition is to turn this country into the 51st state?
So I think we need to take the Prime Minister's assessment fairly seriously in the sense that, we have heard Trump's press conferences, but, the Prime Minister has also been on the phone with him multiple times, has gone down to Mar-a-Lago, had these conversations, and presumably we know the Canadians are spending a lot of time, the Canadian government is, and its officials and cabinet are spending a lot of time with the people around Trump as well. And this is clearly an assessment that they have put together based on all the information that they have. So I think, you do wonder, I don't know if this is a convenient slip or not, right? But I think at the end of the day, it's part of this kind of urgency that the Prime Minister is stressing and perhaps preparing the country for what's going to come. I mean, Andrew, I want to be really clear here. Like, it is going to be so hard for the United States to take over Canada for a whole variety of reasons. It would be a complete nightmare. It would be a disaster. But I'm not worried about the feasibility. If we get into arguments about the feasibility of this, it's not productive. I think what I'm most worried about, and I think what the Prime Minister is perhaps warning, is that even if Donald Trump tries, it's going to really hurt us. I'm not worried about this. I'm not worried about whether or not Donald Trump can succeed. I don't think he can. I mean, sort of military force, but then we're kind of getting into science fiction, I think. But at the end of the day, I do worry that this crushing economic pressure that he seems very happy to put on our country, this is where we really do need to be concerned. Because,
Stephanie, if I'm understanding you correctly, it's just the mere threat. Just the mere threat is a threat to Canadian sovereignty. I mean, you don't have to officially become the 51st state, officially be absorbed into the United States. But if that is the president's goal and ambition, and every day he tries to kind of push that agenda, then how can this country respond?
So I think, it's a tough question. And I'm kind of, again, one of these times where I'm happy perhaps not to be in government.
Yeah.
I think the good news is that Canadians are awake to the threat, and they understand that things need to change, that we can't go on with business as usual. And we definitely saw that last weekend with this outpouring of Canadian patriotism online, and that I think is a good thing. I think what we need to do, one of my close friends this morning, we were chatting, and he said, I ache for nation building. I ache for the time of nation building. And I think not to get too editorial on this, but I think to a certain extent, we have convinced ourselves that nation building is chopping a percentage point off the GDP, right? Or, handing out a payment here or there, or $200 or whatever that is. That's not nation building. We need to focus on infrastructure. We need to understand the needs of business. But at the same time, business needs to understand the need for government to be able to do its job. How many times have I read stories in the newspapers about, Canada spent $10,000 on new chairs at its embassy? Because meeting other countries where they are, which is what we need to do if we want to expand our global footprint, is going to take investment. So I'm encouraged by the conversations that we're seeing today. I'm encouraged by the summit, because we need everyone to understand the needs of everyone else and then carve a strategy and a path forward, and doing so with a level head. Even if I think, when I talk to my family and I talk to a lot of my friends, they're very nervous about what's coming ahead. But we have a lot of capabilities and capacities. We just need to kind of, I think, change our mindset about a lot of this, and then focus on what are the heavy tasks at hand, which will take time, money, effort, and perhaps cause a little pain as well.
Yeah, I mean, Stephanie, I think you've summed it up well, and I think we've seen a lot of Canadian pride, a lot of Canadian strength, a definite pushback against this notion of the 51st state. So there does seem to be a coming together of leaders and community leaders, business unions, all kinds of people, of political leaders in this country that want to kind of try and take on this fight and make the country stronger. But just in this moment, because you are a former national security analyst, I'm just wondering what you can tell us about, I'm sure, well, you tell me, the national security community, if you will, having the Prime Minister make this kind of assessment, as again, quasi-publicly, is this now a national security threat? And if it is, then how does that group of people deal with it?
This is such an interesting question, and I'm getting this question a lot from my students lately. I teach a class right now called Espionage and Foreign Interference, and a lot of them have asked me, and they said, well, isn't this foreign interference? And it's not, because it's not clandestine. I think the first answer is that the tools for this don't lie with CSIS. The tools to kind of fix this are going to lie with global affairs, with international trade, with innovation, science, and economic development Canada. All these different toolkits that we have, that these are going to be the tools in which we have to fix it. I think the national security community, frankly, is worried. They are seeing the news about kind of witch hunts at the FBI, offering half of the CIA workforce some kind of weird buyout that I don't really understand. And I think that is going to be another conversation we're going to have, because as a part of our, continentalism that we've had over the past, 70 years, we have really relied on the U.S. national security community for its resources. Many of the leads and the tips that we get come from the United States that help our own national security investigation. And if this national security community in the United States is embroiled in kind of its own civil war, then that's going to be really, really bad for us too. So this is another area where we're going to have to invest. But I think first and foremost, we really do need to come up with some kind of strategy and understanding about how we're going to meet this economic threat. And then hopefully in the meantime, we can see where the pieces are going to fall within that U.S. national security community going forward, because that will have an impact.
My final question to you, Stephanie, and I'm not trying to make this moment more dramatic than it already is. It's inherently...
It's pretty dramatic.
It's pretty dramatic, right? So when you have the Prime Minister making this kind of acknowledgement, once again, that this annexation threat is a real thing, I mean, how, from a national security perspective, though, do you look at that in the sense of, is the President of the United States an adversary, an enemy, somebody that we cannot trust, no longer an ally? I mean, I guess I'm putting words in your mouth, but I'm trying to kind of figure out how you navigate the president and what he said, and now the acknowledgement on the part of the Prime Minister that this is real.
So I think that where I would look at this from a national security perspective is that the United States made a choice with this particular election, and we have our neighbor, our closest friend, has become. I think they will. Obviously they're going to stay our neighbor, but they are going to be more erratic in the future. And the kind of relationship we've had with the United States in terms of security, political relationships, cultural relationships, economic relationships is clearly not going to be what it once was, probably forever. It doesn't matter, I think, if a Democratic administration comes in 4 years. Really, I think we are looking at kind of a permanent mindset change. And so I'm not worried, again, about, I think we should kind of not worry about, needing to man the border with, hockey size. I saw the story about the hockey sticks with googly eyes, or I don't think we should worry about invasion, but what we should worry about is that the global order that we have relied on for our security and prosperity has never been more under attack, that it possibly will not withstand the next 4 years. And we have to understand that the international system that we currently live in will change. And this is why we need to invest in our resources. This is why we need to do this 10 years ago.
Right.
But better late than never, right? So from a national security perspective, we need to encourage we need to secure our infrastructure. We need to build out our infrastructure. We need to build out our foreign policy institutions so we can reach out to other countries, like-minded countries, secure trade if there is going to be this drop-off in trade with the United States. And we need to start thinking about, how much do we want to rely on the United States for intelligence and foreign information that we have so heavily relied on for the past 70 years. These are the questions we need to be asking. I don't like to be the prof that says I told you so, but yeah, I'll say it. I told you so. This is when we've called for investing in these capacities. It's not because we're looking for make-work projects. It's because these are a matter of nation building and ensuring that Canada is strong and secure, and making sure that we are well placed to withstand whatever is going to happen in the international system in the coming decades.
Stephanie, I've listened to you for years, and I think you told us so. But thank you for telling us so again. Always good to see you. Always appreciate your insights. Stephanie Carvin is an associate professor at Carleton University and a former national security analyst.